Okay. Wow. That was embarrassing. Just, what the hell? What a terrible film. This film is an embarrassment to DC, it's an embarrassment to the character of the Flash, and it's an embarrassment to cinema as a whole. What a terrible film. How do you take this comic, this story, and massacre it so badly? There was already an animated film made for it, The Flashpoint Paradox. All you had to do was just rip that film off. And they failed to do that. Look, I just want to emphasize this. I am a fan of comic books. I love Marvel, I love DC, I love comic books and superheroes as a whole, and I particularly love The Flash. Now, I got into The Flash through the CW show. I think the first 3 seasons of that show are very good, albeit they're problematic, they have issues. For example, Barry Allen and Iris West are like pseudo brother and sister, and they have like a relationship and they get married, and it's weird. Regardless of that, the CW show is the more faithful and more accurate representation of the character of the Flash than Ezra Miller or this film ever will be. This film is just a disgrace to the character of the Flash. But the thing about the CW show is that it sparked my interest in the character of the Flash, and I started to read some of the comics. I've obviously read the Flashpoint Paradox. I started to read some of the New 52. I got to the Gorilla Grodd arc, and then I kind of stopped because it wasn't really my thing. I love the Zero issue of the New 52. I think that issue is fantastic. I read the original Flash Rebirth, you know, the one where Barry Allen comes back from the Speed Force and then he races Superman and then finds out Reverse Flash killed his mother and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I read that. That stuff is great. I'm a fan of the Flash. And look, for years, I've been going on about the fact that I don't think this film looks very good. Everything they've talked about this film doesn't sound good. The trailers didn't look great, albeit the final trailer they released focused more on the Flash rather than Michael Keaton as Batman, and it looks okay. And then the early reviews came out and people were saying it's actually pretty good, and so I was, optimistic. I wanted to go into this and be pleasantly surprised. I wasn't. This film was awful. At the end of the day, I wanted a good Flash film. I wanted to walk into this film and be like, yeah, that was great. They did the character justice. I really enjoyed that. I didn't get that. This film was just plain bad. Ezra Miller as Barry Allen was just obnoxious. The character they play is not Barry Allen, not at all. Look, I like Ezra Miller as an actor, okay? I love them in Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think they're fantastic in that. I like them in the Fantastic Beasts films. They do a good job there. And in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think they do a good job also. But as the Flash, this actor is just not Barry Allen. And look, sometimes it is hard to separate the character from the actor. Ezra Miller is currently going through a bunch of legal trouble, a bunch of mental health problems, and overall, Ezra Miller is not a good role model and should not be playing the Flash in future films. And it's also hard to separate Ezra Miller from the character of Barry Allen, because in this film, Barry Allen talks a lot about heroism and the idea of what it means to be a hero and how to be a good person. And it is kind of jarring because the actor is not a good person. Look, I wish Ezra Miller all the best. I want them to get mental help, I want them to get better, and I want them to get their career back on track. I would love a redemption story for them. But also, they should not be playing the Flash. The Flash is meant to be a superhero that's meant to inspire children and also the general world. And you can't do that if you're not a good person. I'm all for comeback stories. Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic example of that. But in future films, Ezra Miller should not be playing the Flash. But look, Miller is not necessarily terrible, but their portrayal is also very grating. The character does mellow out a bit when they unite with their younger version, and you see the dichotomy between the two, and the older version is really annoyed by the younger version. But just overall, this portrayal of the character is just very annoying. Ezra Miller was good in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but also bear in mind that character was also a side character in that film. And to be honest, they've never been good casting for the character, because when Ezra Miller plays Barry Allen more seriously, they're pretty good. They are fairly good, and they're a fairly decent portrayal of Barry Allen, but also when the character has to be funny and goofy, they're really obnoxious and really annoying. Ezra Miller shines the most as his character when they have to do the more serious, big, and epic moments. Again, At the Speed of Force is one of the best sequences in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Ezra Miller's performance is one of the highlights of that sequence.
Dad, whatever happens, I want you to know your kid was one of them, Dad. One of the best of the best. Make your own future. Make your own past. It's all right now.
But whenever this character needs to be funny, Miller is just very unfunny and very obnoxious and very loud, and it's really headache-inducing. Just, they're not that good when they need to be funny. Now, as seen in the trailer, Ezra Miller plays 2 versions of Barry Allen. And I've got to say, the younger version of Barry Allen is even more obnoxious and even more annoying than the current version Ezra Miller played. That laugh they have is horrible. Shut up! And what's even more annoying is the fact that the film addresses that they're annoying, but just because the film has pointed out that they're annoying does not make it any less annoying. Also, the young Barry being the Dark Flash or the Black Flash from the comics, the Black Racer, nah. That did not work at all. That was a terrible idea. The design was awful. And speaking of costumes, Ezra Miller's main Flash costume for this film is not good. I've never thought it looked good. The concept art was great. The one they released in DC Fandom all those years ago looked great. In execution, it looks awful. It's way too skin tight. The helmet is just distractingly bad and bulbous and just... it looks bad. There are a couple of moments where the suit looks fine in motion and the texture is okay. But other than that, it's not a good design. I didn't like the costume for this film. The humor for this film was also very crude and very unfunny. The amount of dick jokes and then the Barry Allen being a virgin joke just wasn't funny. All these crude humor jokes should not be in kids' films and they should not be in comic book related fare because they're not funny, but also kids should not be looking at their superheroes making virgin and dick jokes and just what is going on with humor today? Like, there is a time and a place for these kind of jokes, but it's not in your family-friendly superhero film. Like, what are you doing? Also, the Back to the Future joke was funny the one time and not the 10 other times they decided to repeat it. The idea that in the timeline Barry creates when he goes back to save his mother, he alters the timeline and messes things up, and that Michael J. Fox no longer plays Marty McFly in Back to the Future, but instead it's Eric Stoltz, who was the original casting choice for Marty McFly, was funny the one time. When they keep repeating it, it's not funny. Now, this film is kind of an adaptation of the Flashpoint storyline, the Flashpoint paradox, whatever you want to call it. So, the biggest question I have is, where's the Reverse Flash? The film does not show, hint, or tease the character of the Reverse Flash, and because of that, it fundamentally changes the character of Barry Allen. The idea of Barry Allen seeing a silhouette of the Reverse Flash, or seeing the lightning of the Reverse Flash, or having these horrible accidents happen to him when he's a child, which were caused by the Reverse Flash, the idea of him knowing that something is out there after him sparks his interest in science, in the impossible, and all that culminates and sparks the idea that Barry needs to become a CSI. And so the film not even hinting at the Reverse Flash is just bizarre and weird and stupid. Andy Muschietti, the director, said, oh yeah, we'll do the Reverse Flash in an eventual sequel if we ever get a sequel. No, the character of the Reverse Flash is fundamental to the character of Barry Allen as we currently know him. So why do we not hint at the Reverse Flash? What? Is this film ashamed of the Flash universe or something? Also, Barry going back in time to move a can of tin tomatoes rather than stopping the Reverse Flash is one of the most uninteresting ways to start off the Flashpoint universe. It's so boring and so uninteresting, and it's so stupid. It also kills the dramatic tension of Barry in the final act, where normally in the Flashpoint storyline, he runs back in time to stop himself in the Speed Force. Here, he just puts a can of tomatoes back. Like, what? Also, why is his mum Latina? Ezra Miller is not Latina, nor has this version of Barry Allen ever shown hints at being Latina. Yet his mum has a very thick Spanish accent. You'd think that Barry Allen as a child seeing his mother killed would ultimately decide to embrace his Spanish heritage and, fully be proud that he is part Latina. They don't address that in the film. Zack Snyder never established this as a character trait for Barry Allen, so why is Barry Allen part Latina in the film? She does a good job, but it's just very distracting when Ezra Miller is like so un-Latina and she is very Latina. It's so weird. Now, getting on to the main selling point of the trailers, Michael Keaton is back as Batman, everybody. I purposefully didn't watch Batman 1989 because I wanted to see, was this film going to be impactful even though I had not seen the Michael Keaton Batman films? And for the most part, not really. Like, Michael Keaton is fine, but also he kind of doesn't really serve a purpose in this film apart from helping them go and save Supergirl. After that, he's kind of irrelevant and just makes Batman look really useless because he can't do anything in the fight against the Kryptonians apart from fly around and shoot things in the Batplane. Also, the Batman 1989 callbacks are embarrassingly bad. He just randomly goes, "You wanna get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts." When I saw that in the trailer, I thought, okay, he's probably gonna say that during the time when Barry wants to recreate the experiment that gives him powers. Nah, he just says it afterwards before they go off to the big fight, and it's like, why the hell did he say that? It also doesn't help the fact that Michael Keaton looks so dead in the eyes, so dead in the face when he says that line, because it very much just feels like Michael Keaton went, yep, I'm saying the thing.
You wanna get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Now, I will say I do stand corrected in the sense of, in the first couple trailers when they had Michael Keaton go,
Yeah. I'm Batman.
it works much better in the film than it does in the trailers. Like, the context does work because Keaton is begrudgingly becoming Batman again, so that bit kind of works, but I cannot defend the Let's Get Nuts line. That was terrible. Also, there is no reason for it to be Michael Keaton in this film other than just nostalgia bait. Like, why is this not just Thomas Wayne? How does Barry Allen going back in time to save his mother suddenly create a massive ripple effect to where Ben Affleck is no longer Bruce Wayne? Like, why is this not Thomas Wayne? We could have had Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Negan himself, be Batman.
Hot diggity dog! This is magnificent.
But we can't. And don't give me the dumb excuse of, oh, but Ben Affleck's Batman killed. What's the difference between Affleck's Batman and Thomas Wayne Batman? They're the same character. No, the clear distinction between the two characters is that Affleck was able to find redemption and become a hero again, and you use that as the core crux as to your son found redemption, you can too, Thomas. That's how you differentiate the character. It's not that hard. Speaking of Zod, Michael Shannon phones it in as Zod, and I do not blame him. He's not given any new interesting material, he is just here to punch and get punched by Supergirl. He's even gone on record to talk about how unsatisfying the experience was to film his part as Zod for this film, because I mean, you can just tell his performance is him just going, yeah, Supergirl, we're here, blah, 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 blah. You can tell he's phoning it in. I hope he got paid a good amount of money because he deserves it. Also, speaking of Supergirl, Sasha Calle does a good job as the character, but she's not really given any interesting material. She's just here. She does a good job, and I would have liked her to have been Supergirl alongside Henry Cavill. She just doesn't get anything interesting to do. Also, Antje Traue reprises her role as Feora, and she's here for like 2 seconds. Doesn't get anything interesting to do. She's just here to die, and what was the point? Speaking of people that are only here for 2 seconds, Ben Affleck shows up again as Bruce Wayne, and he's fine. The thing that I don't understand is how Ben Affleck has gone on record to say that he thinks his portrayal of Batman in The Flash is his best portrayal of the character to date, when he's only on screen for like 2 seconds and barely does anything. He really is just here to have like a 2-second conversation with Barry, and granted, that conversation is very good. In fact, that's probably the best scene in the film. The one where he talks to Barry about how our scars define us and our past defines us and we shouldn't change it regardless of the pain we've been through. That's good stuff. It's like the only really great bit of writing in the film. Other than that, he shows up as Batman for like 2 minutes. Granted, the CGI visual effects face replacement on the stuntmen riding the Batcycle is awful. He shows up on the Batcycle, does some crazy impossible feats even for Batman. Like, the dude is just like gliding along the highway, getting like scraped along by cars and like bumping into things. Even Zack Snyder, when he was trying to make Batman hyper-realistic, never went to that extent. But yeah, he shows up for 2 minutes and then fucks off. Also, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman cameo is nothing. She shows up for 2 seconds, they do the same lasso of truth gag from Justice League, and then she leaves. Also, I'm just gonna say this, excluding the first Wonder Woman film, I don't think any director other than Zack Snyder has been able to get a good performance out of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She just shows up, smiles, says a corny line, and then leaves. Okay, and speaking of cameos, let's just get this out of the way. The whole cameo fest in the Speed Force was an abomination and was just utterly disgusting. I genuinely cannot believe they brought back Christopher Reeves via deepfake, George Reeves via deepfake, the Supergirl actress via deepfake. It's just, what were they thinking? Also, the Nicolas Cage Superman Lives cameo was also just pointless. Like, it's the most niche thing ever, and I don't think general audiences even know that Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman once upon a time in an unreleased film. What was the point? It's so just bafflingly niche. Also, they brought back Adam West back via deepfake as well, and just, it's disgusting. This trend of the multiverse and bringing back characters that have originally played these characters prior, it needs to stop. It's horrible. This film took it way too far. It's just unnatural and immoral. Like, I'm sure Warner Brothers got permission from these actors' estates to bring them back via deepfake and CGI, but even still, it's creepy and grotesque. Like, these people are dead. Let them rest in peace. Part of the beautiful thing about life is that we age and we die. So let these characters remain as how we last saw them and leave them in peace. But hey, at least we got Jay Garrick. This film is so unabashedly ashamed of the Flash lore. They didn't even bother to get John Wesley Shipp as Jay Garrick or even Teddy Sears as Jay Garrick. It's just some weird CGI model that I think is wearing the CW Jay Garrick's costume. At least it looks like the costume Teddy Sears was wearing when he was pretending to be Jay Garrick in The Flash Season 2. And speaking of that, how the fuck did John Wesley Shipp or Grant Gustin not get a cameo in this film, but George Clooney as Bruce Wayne did? Look, the Clooney cameo is fine. It doesn't actually bother me. I also think George Clooney gets way too much hate as Batman. Like, Batman and Robin is not a good film, but people act like it's the most disgusting abomination of a film ever. It's a dumb, stupid film. Just have fun with it. It's not the abomination people claim it to be. And also, George Clooney is not a bad casting choice for Batman, so I don't get why he had to publicly apologize on TV for being Batman. That in itself is just taking the joke way too far. And look, him showing up as Bruce Wayne at the end would have been funny if they actually bothered to dress him up like Bruce Wayne, give him the Bruce Wayne looking wig. Nah. From what it looks like, it just seems like they got George Clooney to come in for like an hour to shoot this scene and then fuck off. The visual effects of this film are also just terrible. Even the weird CGI models in the Speed Force that Andy Muschietti said was intentional. Nah. Own your bad visual effects like Michael Bay did for Ambulance, because I'm sorry, the visual effects in this film are disgustingly bad. How does Man of Steel, that came out 10 years ago, look better than this? How does Iron Man 1 look better than this? How does Spider-Man 2 from 2004 look better than this? This film is just an eyesore. The opening sequence is embarrassing. The CGI babies, embarrassing. The face replacement of the stuntmen playing Batman to put Ben Affleck's face on the cowl, horribly bad. For a film that cost $200+ million, this is embarrassing. What's also more embarrassing is how this low-budget CW show is a more iconic, more faithful, and more representative adaptation of the Flash character than anything in this $200+ million film.
My name is Barry Allen. I am the fastest man alive.
Blake Neely's Flash theme has never been topped. It's one of the most iconic superhero themes of all time. It's the perfect Flash theme, and the music in this film is utterly forgettable. Aside from the reuse of the Danny Elfman, Michael Keaton Batman theme, the film's score is just so unmemorable. Like, there is a Flash motif, but I don't remember it. It's not very good. Grant Gustin is also just an infinitely better portrayal of Barry Allen than Ezra Miller. You rewatch the first 10 minutes of the CW show, and it's already more iconic, more memorable, and more faithful of an adaptation of the Flash character than this film. Nothing in this film ever came close to the scenes of Barry visiting his father in prison and the conversations they would have. Also, nothing in this film ever came close to the emotional gut punch that was the season 1 finale.
Oh, my beautiful boy,
I got a second chance to come back here to tell you that I'm okay.
There is no gravitas to this film. There is no reverence for the character of the Flash in this film. This film is an abomination. This isn't someone telling a story about a character. This film is just visual noise. This film was just so loud as well. Like, I love normally watching my films, my big blockbuster films, in Dolby Atmos. This film was just a headache. The film doesn't really have much to say apart from the fact that, oh, the bad things that happen to us make us who we are. That's it. It's very surface level. Also, when watching this film, I thought back to the time when the CW show adapted Flashpoint in the 3rd season, and I thought back then they butchered the Flashpoint storyline massively. Comparing the show's Flashpoint to the film's version of Flashpoint, the show does it infinitely better. We don't see Barry spend time with the family he's tried so hard to fix. So when he has to say goodbye to his mother, it just feels empty. We haven't seen them spend enough time together. We haven't seen Barry try to cherish the family he's tried to rebuild by going back in time to save his mother. The film is so heavily focused on plot that Barry literally spends like 1 second with his mum and dad before he has to go rush off and deal with his younger self, and then the plot has to start rolling. The whole thing is just emotionally vapid and hollow. Let's flash back again to the Flash season 1. When Barry lets Reverse Flash kill his mother, it's incredibly impactful, because not only have we seen Barry's season-long arc of him trying to take down the Reverse Flash and prove his father's innocence,
I want to kill you right now. I know that rage.
but we've also seen that ultimately Barry considers the universal consequences and sacrifices his happiness because it's the right thing. How did this film miss the mark on that so badly? When Barry says goodbye to his mother in this film, it's empty. It's hollow. I didn't feel much. I don't care about this Barry Allen's relationship to his mother or the relationship to his father. Unlike in the Snyder Cut, where I felt like Billy Crudup and Ezra Miller had a connection, Ezra Miller and this actor playing Henry Allen do fine, but the character writing isn't very emotionally connecting. In this film, I don't feel like Barry has enough reason to go back in time and do Flashpoint. I pitched an idea for a Flashpoint film long ago, and my inciting incident was that Barry's dad would have died in prison. This film sets up the idea that Barry Allen's dad is waiting for an appeal to be released from prison, and that there is CCTV footage that could prove his innocence and possibly lead to his freedom. It turns out the CCTV footage doesn't prove anything because Barry's dad doesn't look up at the camera, so it's hard to prove that it's him, but even still, it just feels empty and low stakes. Maybe if the film showed us Barry sitting through the trial and see his dad get sentenced back to prison again, would have been fine. It would have been emotionally impactful, and I would have understood, okay, Barry has now truly lost his dad to the prison system, and he's gonna go back in time to save his mother because he wants to be happy again. But no, in the film, he's kind of just like at home with Iris going like, oh no, yeah, my dad's not gonna be free because the footage isn't enough. Oh no, bye, you can leave now. I didn't feel anything. It was hollow and empty. This film isn't a story. In fact, I think it's kind of insulting to suggest this film has a story or the fact that this is even a film. This film is shallow, visually ugly, and just a means for a studio to try and empty your wallet so you can see a bunch of irrelevant and unnecessary cameos that provide no satisfaction. This film is actually a disgrace to DC as a brand and to the Flash character. Never has Martin Scorsese's statements about comic book films being theme park movies been ever more impactful and relevant. I've seen the phone footage of people in cinemas cheering for these horrible deepfake cameos. What are you cheering for? The film literally just stops to go, hey, look at all this, look at deepfake Christopher Reeve and how horrible he looks. Hey, look at Adam West Batman and George Reeves Superman and Supergirl, Nicolas Cage is Super. What is the point of these cameos? What is this providing you? What emotional satisfaction is this giving you? Spider-Man No Way Home was a story about Peter Parker learning to overcome his pain and loss, and to do so he needed the help of the other Peter Parkers. Yeah, sure, No Way Home has unnecessary callbacks to the previous Spider-Man films, but there's a difference to Willem Dafoe going, you know, I'm something of a scientist myself, and Michael Keaton just randomly going, you wanna get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Why does Keaton say that line? He has no reason to say that line. At least Dafoe's line happens somewhat naturally in a conversation. This endless tirade of multiverse concepts that comic book films and TV shows have been trying to do has just become exhausting. It was fun back in the day during the Flash seasons 1 to 3, but after that, it's just become way too much and is ultimately being a detriment to storytelling and to writing. Martin Scorsese isn't wrong now when he says that films have now just become things for people to clap at and cheer and to get excited for. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for the cinematic experience. Avengers Endgame is a perfect example of good fan service. But the fan service in The Flash is not fan service. Who are these fans that you're servicing? If you wanted to bring back the Christopher Reeve type Superman, bring back Brandon Routh. That's technically the same character. If you truly wanted to please the DC fans, bring back Henry Cavill for a substantial cameo like Affleck got in this film and Gal Gadot did. But no, they cut his cameo at the end because apparently his was suggesting a future with him as Superman, so nah, we can't have that in the film even though the film's ending leads to nowhere. Oh no, we can't keep Henry Cavill, but we can keep Jason Momoa because he's still Aquaman, and Aquaman has a film coming out at the end of the year, so we have to put him in a post-credit scene that ultimately means nothing. This film is an embarrassment. I'm actually genuinely very curious. Does James Gunn genuinely like this film? Like, I'd be very surprised if he actually does and isn't just saying this for PR because he's head of DC Film Studios. Honestly, James Gunn needs to do a full-on DC reboot. I don't care if he keeps his friends or whatever, but this continuity is dead. This, honestly, is not the Snyderverse. The Snyderverse, to me, is Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Every other film that has come in between or afterwards, that is not the Snyderverse, that is the DCEU and Warner Brothers' weird warped regime. This film universe died as soon as Zack Snyder left the production of Justice League back in 2017. This is a decade-long franchise, and it's just been embarrassing storytelling. Look, I love Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Those are the films that I will cherish from this DCEU experiment. Everything else is either fine or bad, and I don't care anymore. DC just needs to reset. Superman Legacy just needs to come along and be good. I need James Gunn just to bring his vision to DC and move away from this, because I don't want any other DC film to feel like this. This film was awful. Also, when it comes to The Flash, they need to reboot this character completely, recast the actor. It cannot be Ezra Miller. It cannot. Get someone that is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and have them play comic book Flash and comic book Barry Allen. I'm so sick and tired of having a Barry Allen that is not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Just make the character like how he was in the book. Like, is it really that hard to give us this? Like, come on. Look, I hate to end this video in a downer, but that's just the way I felt about this film. The Flash was awful. But those are just my thoughts on The Flash. What did you guys think? I know this film has like a mixed reception. Some people love it, a lot of people hate it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. And until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time. Fucking hell.